Ladies and gentlemen, today on the program, feeling just a little bit nostalgic, man, because I'm making an announcement, but not until I talk about some hip new music. And I was about to say I'd tell you about it on the other side, but just for old time's sake, hey Denny boy, roll intro. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. I've been listening to Olivia Rodrigo. Do you know Olivia Rodrigo, kids? She is the hottest thing in pop music at this moment. She's a teenager who, in the past year or so, maybe 6 months, has set Spotify streaming records back to back for her music. She's a Disney kid. She's a child actor, performer, signed by a major record label to produce some music, and she dropped this tune called Driver's License, which now has something very close to 1 billion streams on the Spotify. And I had no idea who this person is until our old friend Elena came along and said, hey, you're always talking about that old guy rock and roll music. Why don't you talk about something I like? And Olivia Rodrigo is one of the names that she gave me. And one of the reasons is, since she's a young artist, and recently I talked about the Linda Lindas, right? And during my little exposition about the Linda Lindas, I said I hoped somebody's keeping an eye on these kids, man, because they are young, and the system will chew them up and spit them out on the snow. You know, you gotta protect those kids from what the system will do. What the level of fame that a young artist can accrue these days, and how quickly, you know, one video, a performance in a library goes viral, and overnight, man, your world changes. And if nobody's keeping an eye on these kids, bad stuff can happen. So as I was talking about that, Elena was talking about Olivia Rodrigo, who had something similar happen. Slightly different, but something similar, okay? Now, she's a child star of sorts, kind of a low-level Disney person being in Disney shows. And, you know, it will come as no surprise to you that at 47 and change, I don't watch a lot of Disney shows. But she had a sort of modest level of fame. She's a teenager, so she's been basically in a sort of public eye since the time she was born. Very young when she started taking on acting roles. But she did not become a household name until this tune, Driver's License, which dropped and flipped immediately and just blew up. So she's another one of these people who found herself suddenly very famous, suddenly very much in the public eye. And while she had been groomed up to a point, I suspect this level of fame this quickly was pretty intense for her. And Elena said that, you know, she's taken some heat online because anybody who gets popular, especially that quickly, and, you know, is young and a girl and pretty and a songwriter and whatever, you know, the level of adulation comes, and then the equal and opposite reaction, the level of haters, also comes, right? And they rise up together, and you find yourself in this maelstrom of just intense scrutiny, worship, attention. You know, people, especially in the social media age, strive for attention because attention is currency, kids, especially these days. And everybody says they want that, but then when it happens, man, it can be not quite what they were expecting. And my understanding is that Olivia Rodrigo has taken some heat simply for being Olivia Rodrigo, simply existing and simply doing well. And so it was a correlation for Elena between the Linda Lindas and Olivia Rodrigo, and how you got to keep an eye on these kids, man, because it is a rough and tumble world out there. And once you start sort of existing as your main presence on social media, it's a freaking cesspool, or it can be. You know, I've seen a lot of this lately, and I've begun to curb my social media usage. Because it's just making me angry, man. It's just bringing me down. Never read the comments, kids. That's the lesson from your Uncle Johnny today. Never read the freaking comments because they'll make you insane. And so I've been endeavoring to cull my social media activity substantially, which is not what you're supposed to do when you run a podcast, by the way. But I'm doing it because it drives me crazy, and I spend way too much freaking time mindlessly scrolling through the social media, and I've already talked about that, and I don't need to say anymore. But as a favor to Elena, to appeal to that younger demographic, the one listener I have who's from the younger demographic, I listened to Olivia Rodrigo, and what do we find? Interesting stuff, man. Now, she dropped a record this year called Sour, which followed hard upon the world record streaming releases of her two singles, Driver's License being the first. And what we have here is a breakup album written by a teenage girl. Not marketed to me, man. But I like to try to take the music on its own merit these days, and what do we find? Well, we find a pretty freaking cool album, if I'm being honest. You know, this is a pop record. It's not exactly what I was expecting, and there's a lot of, okay, it's teenage angst, and she's broken up with somebody who I gather was also a famous Disney person. So there's this kind of veneer of celebrity about it all. And Lord knows we love that, don't we, kids? You see it in the checkout line at the grocery store every time you go in. And so we have a breakup record, and I think 10 of the 11 tunes are about You Betrayed Me. And part of me wants to kind of be like, okay, we get it, you got broken up with. But I'm a jaded, old 47-year-old man. Don't remember puppy love anymore, and I'm not trying to belittle the level of intensity and emotion in Olivia Rodrigo's relationship or the breakup, because they probably hit hardest in those teenage years, kids, man. The breakups hit pretty freaking hard when you're a kid. And she had one with somebody and wrote 10 songs about it. But what's interesting about it is that, I think she actually did write the tunes. I think she probably had producers helping out maybe here and there, you know, once we got to studio level. But I don't think these songs were written for her. I don't think she's a product of the machine in that way. I think she wrote them, and I went online to see if she can perform them, and she can. You know, her and an acoustic guitar, her and a keyboard, she can do it. And you got to respect that. But there's a lot of compelling lyricism happening here. She has a way of picking, you know, a moment or an image or a little inside shared thing and turning that into a song. You know, the Driver's License song is built around this idea of, I was getting my driver's license, just like you said. We talked about all the fun we were going to have, but here I am now driving past your place by myself. So she can take something micro, right? The driver's license thing. Or the fact that, you know, they listen to Billy Joel together. Or that his new girlfriend, he's telling her all the jokes that she told him, you know? And I read all the self-help books so that you would think I was smarter than I actually am. She can take one of these mundane things and make it kind of beautiful. She can take a micro and make it macro. She can take this little slice of the story and make something very beautiful out of it. You know, Douglas Copeland did that. One of the primary appeals to people of my generation about the Douglas Copeland was that in his early books in particular, he could take just an image, just a little mundane slice of life thing that everybody experiences every day, and make poetry out of it. You know, he has an amazing gift for seeing the beauty in the mundane, seeing the poignant in the ordinary. And Olivia Rodrigo has that gift, man. She's a teenager, and she has this level of insight, which is pretty cool, man. And it's a real talent, and it's an artistry, and it's a poetry, and not everybody has that, all right? Steel Panther has it, you know, but I think it's basically just Steel Panther and Olivia Rodrigo. These days, you know, topping the charts, have got this level of poetry and insight in their lyrics. Some people want to roll up their eyes at the teenage angst, and I understand that. But it tends to be the older critics like me, you know, the older jaded people who can't see the purity anymore, been beaten down by the world weary with gray at the temples. You know, we don't maybe appreciate that young love anymore. And how much it hurts, man. How much it hurts. Now, we can talk about the Black Swan, because they wrote breakup songs in their 60s. And you can kind of roll your eyes at that, but that's unfair, man. That is not sensitive, and that is not compassionate towards the artist. So I will give Olivia Rodrigo props for articulating this angst and this breakup into 10 pretty insightful songs, you know, and interesting songs, musically interesting. Now, I don't know if this is going to mean anything to a lot of you who are listening right now, but her idols are kind of Taylor Swift and Lorde, all right? You remember Lorde, right? We Could Be Royals. Remember that tune? That was big a few years ago. And then Taylor Swift is an entire industry and empire unto herself. But if you're like me, you probably haven't listened to a whole lot of that. Although, Elena, I have listened to some Taylor, and I know her most recent record, the last couple have been extremely critically acclaimed, and she's growing into herself as an adult artist, and I can appreciate that. But if you've listened to Lorde, if you listen to Taylor Swift, some of that stuff, you will get those flavors on this Olivia Rodrigo record, okay? And there's a couple bangers on it. There's some stuff I was not expecting, all right? Kind of a grunge vibe, kind of a pop punk thing, if you can think of Avril Lavigne. Another favorite of mine. So you get tunes like the opener, Brutal. Brutal! And the tune, Good For You. And Good, G-O-O-D, number 4, and the letter U. I suppose it was inevitable that these internet shorthands would become part of the regular vernacular, but okay, this is not music marketed to me. Steel Panther is music marketed to me, and I'm not sure that that's a positive thing, or that it says very flattering things about me, all right? But those tunes are rockers, man, like straight up rock and roll stuff, which is cool. And then you get what I think is a really pretty acoustic tune called Enough For You, which has got, you know, melodies, man, melodies and chords and stuff. And it's mature melodies and chords and stuff. And delivered in a mature way, all right? There's a fine line between the kind of teenage angst and an actual emotional delivery, and this kid has it, all right? She knows how to deliver these tunes. And I think my favorite tune is Favorite Crime. And I'm going to go into the lyrics on this, but there's kind of a Bon Iver thing happening on this tune. And there's just a depth. There's a musical depth to this stuff. Whether you see the depth in the lyrics or not, you know, that's a very subjective thing. The music is a subjective thing too, but there is a depth to it. And I got kind of a Bon Iver vibe off of this. And there are some really neat harmonies happening. And as I said, I went online to see if she can actually do this or not. And she can. There's video to prove it. The harmonies aren't there, but her singing and playing this music is there. So live, I'm sure the harmonies are there too, and I sincerely hope they're not on tracks, like real folks singing with a real band. And if you're sneaking up on 1 billion streams of one of your tunes on Spotify, you can afford to get real singers and a real band, and I hope she does. When she does the inevitable massive world tour on this stuff, I hope the band is there with her. Because I think live this would be pretty incredible, except if you're in a room full of 20,000 people who are 14 and singing along with her at the top of their lungs, which is great and wonderful and what a concert's supposed to be. make you crazy if you're trying to hear the band, though. I have this issue, right? Like, I like to go to the show and hear the music and see the show and experience the show. And there's always a drunk dude right over there who's singing at the top of his lungs, freaking way off key and messing up the dang show, man. So I hope when people go to the Olivia Rodrigo show, they don't have kind of 14, 15-year-old girls who are freaking out drunk on power in their first concert, singing off key and wrecking the dang show for everybody. But of course it's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. But I think live, a lot of this stuff would be freaking really cool, man. There's a lot of vibe. There's a lot of atmosphere happening. And these tunes are emotional, but they got sing-alongs in it. You know, they got the hooks going that people will sing along to. And I got to tell you, though, you know, if you're thinking about going out and getting the Olivia record for your 12-year-old, she's a bit sweary, man. She's a bit sweary. And, okay, maybe that gives her some street cred. I don't know. And I don't think parents really care. Honestly, it's very weird for me because I see kind of a generation of insanely overprotective helicopter parents who also don't seem to care if their kids are exposed to like language and crazy intense video games. You know, like lots of 10-year-olds are killing me at Call of Duty. Lots of 10-year-olds are beating Grand Theft Auto. So I guess all that's okay. But then the helicopter parenting happens at the same time, and I don't know what the line is, man. I'm not a parent, okay? I'm apparently not a parent. But if it matters to you that you maybe don't want a whole lot of F-bombs, like a whole lot of F-bombs in your tween or teen music, maybe be careful with Olivia, because, you know, again, street cred, but maybe that's not your jam, you know? I can't talk. I listen to Steel Panther, all right? So I'm going to say, Elena, since it was your birthday this very past weekend, and happy birthday to you, I went and I listened to the Olivia, and I'm talking about it now, and I hope that warms your cockles, young lady. And I think Olivia's just okay by me, all right? So now's when we come down to the crux, kids. I'm announcing an hiatus from the show. I was, tempted to just not produce episodes for a while and see what happened. But there's a professional courtesy in letting your listeners know not to maybe expect an episode right away. Taking a little break, and I wanted to say happy birthday to Elena. Looking after the people, man. Looking after the people. Well, there's a bunch of reasons why I'm kind of going to put the show on ice for a bit. I'm not going to bore you with what those are, okay? It's been on my mind for a little while. You may have noticed that I've been experimenting with some different approaches to doing this, different ways of titling, different ways of marketing, trying to pull in and at the same time focus content-wise. Fair to middling results on some of that. It's becoming a bit of a dog's breakfast from my perspective content-wise. And while I like that, I'm not sure it's actually resonating out there in podcast land. So I'm going to take a break, man. I'm going to step away for a while. And for how long, I do not know. But I wanted to tell you. I wanted to let you know. I didn't want you sitting there eagerly every Tuesday morning thinking, where's the episode? Where's the episode? Where's the episode? And then in 6 months, you're like, where's the episode? I can't do that to you, man. I can't leave you hanging. This is a professional courtesy, all right? But I'm not going to be producing episodes for a bit, and I don't know how long, all right? So I wanted to let you know that. And I also want to say, as we go into this summer, I had it in my mind that I would kind of hang through COVID, because I think a lot of people were helped by the show, maybe through COVID, just a little bit of a friendly voice in your ear, just a little bit of a familiar person talking to you. I see now that things are beginning to open up again. I actually have the glimmer of gigs on the horizon. Can you imagine? So I feel like things are coming back to life. I feel like in summertime, podcast listening declines anyway. People are out there on the patios and they're open again so you can. So I feel like I've got us through, those of us who are here for that purpose, got us through maybe the worst of COVID. The lockdowns are lifting. Maybe you don't need me so much anymore, So I'm going to take a break. But before I do that, I want to say thank you, man. Thank you to each and every one who has tuned in, who has listened, who has given me the feedback along the way. Jay and Tash and Elena, Gwendolyn, Ken the Zen, and Dews and James V and Ronnie D. These cats who have been with me all the way have written in to say nice things. I certainly appreciate that. Everybody who's followed along, who's liked a Facebook post, who's shared, who's done what you can to support the show, even if that just means listening to the show anonymously without me even knowing. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. I want to thank Denny Boy for the intro. Man, Denny Boy has been a staunch supporter from episode 1, and I do appreciate it. He did the art for me, did my t-shirts when I had them, did that intro for me, and I do appreciate you, Denny Boy. I want to thank my good friend Howie Zowie, whose music I have been talking over at the end of each episode for now 78 plus. Thank you, Howie Zowie, for that. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you to everyone. This is a shorty, and I don't know when we'll reconvene, but I want to tell you, man, I want to remind you that good things do happen when you put yourself out there. I haven't said that in a while, but that doesn't make it less true, all right? My experience through this podcast has been really freaking terrific. I've met some amazing folks. I've interviewed people like Jason Tate, Emily Dolan Davies, with whom I'm still in contact, Met some great people, had some fun experiences experimenting around with how to do this and how to do this well. And I'm not sure I've figured it out, to be honest. But it's been an interesting experiment trying. And I want to thank you for coming along on the ride, okay? Do go put yourself out there. Take a shot at things, kids. You just never quite know where you will land, what opportunities may come, what dreams may arise. If you just step through the courage, man, and put yourself out there, okay? Listen to King's X. Listen to Ghost. Listen to The War on Drugs when new records from all those bands come along. Go see live music, Support local artists. Support the industry. Support restaurants. Tip the bar staff. I'm going to roll on now, kids. I'm going to shutting up. Thank you so much again for being here. And until next time, I'll check you later. Hey, last one out of here. Hit the lights, okay? Huh.